All right, I'm watching everyone come in. Give us just a moment. All right, everyone. Today is Thursday, July 16th, 2020. It is 1 minute after the hour. My name is Nick Aracco. I'm CEO of AchieveNext, and I'm certainly pleased to be here today. We are welcoming a diverse group of C-suite leaders and executives from across North America and around the globe for this fireside chat session. We have an hour dedicated to this time. We are recording, and there is an opportunity for us to try to capture some in-the-moment questions. However, if my colleagues and I, who I'm about to introduce, don't get to the opportunity to answer a question, we will provide the opportunity for follow-up and connectivity. So as CEO of AchieveNext, I have the opportunity to work with a very talented team of professionals and business and enterprise leaders with an intent and purpose to bring enterprise leaders together in the most efficient and effective way, for dialogue, for actionable exchange, and for better understanding that should empower each of us individually and enterprise-wide to make confident decisions. And boy, what a world we live in. I am the eternal optimist, the catalyst. The name AchieveNext as a company means that we are here today to help you and your enterprises define and achieve that next level, but no denying the fact that these are challenging times. What we hope to do in the course of this hour through this fireside chat is to confirm and/or challenge your understanding of what role and responsibility you and your enterprises can play to make change, to have real impact, and to have positive momentum as we focus on business reentry during this time, and more importantly, to make connections between you and my two colleagues here today. So first, let me introduce my colleague and friend, Robyn Pollack. Robyn is a managing director here at AchieveNext. She leads our Chief Human Resource Officer, or CHRO, Alliance Network, and our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion practice. Welcome, Robyn.
Thank you, Nick. Excited to be here.
Great. With 2 decades of experience as a bankruptcy and restructuring lawyer, and then as a human capital leader in the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion, Robyn joined AchieveNext and brought us the opportunity to meet and to work with our second colleague joining us today, Dr. Shelton Goode. Shelton, it is a pleasure to have you here. I do have to read a bit about your bio, okay? So everybody knows why we're so excited to have you and Robyn here. So Shelton is the president and chief executive officer of Icarus Consulting, a veteran-owned consulting firm that specializes in helping enterprises create inclusive cultures that leverage diversity and inclusion for a competitive advantage. He, like Robyn, has business, enterprise, and financial focus, but a real heart for all that we do and he does to help you. He was an business executive with over 20 years of diversity, inclusion, HR, and higher education experience. He's held executive positions for companies ranging in size from 300 million to 11 billion plus. So he knows the middle market. He knows what each of you who are gathered here are facing in terms of both opportunity and crisis. Dr. Goode is the author of Diversity Managers, Angels of Mercy, or Barbarians at the Gate. Love the title. It's an opportunity for us to talk about. He learned the value of D&I firsthand by rolling up his sleeves and working with C-suite leaders like you gathered here today. We have 150 executives who've joined this call today that represent thousands across North America that are interested to hear what we're going to bring to light. In 2019, Forbes selected him as one of the top 10 diversity and inclusion trailblazers, and the National Association of African Americans in Human Resources awarded him their HR Trailblazer Award in 2005 and 2012, the only person selected for the award twice. Most importantly to me, if he turns his head a little bit and looks at the back of that chair, there is a Philadelphia Eagles fan at heart. So those of you that know AchieveNext and know Robyn and I, we're Philadelphia based. And anytime I get to introduce and bring to light someone like Shelton, who's also got a passion for Philadelphia, no offense to everyone else, I'm pleased to have him here today. So welcome, Shelton.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
So Shelton, you know that we are blessed to have input from finance, HR, and other C-suite leaders bringing us questions and commentary on a daily basis. And I had the opportunity to capture some questions in advance that frame our discussion today. I have to start with a big one, and it's one that I think that'll set the stage because we want this to be not only enlightening but actionable for the executives gathered today. Shelton, for years there have been discussions on race, inequity, and social justice, but these discussions in 2020 feel different. Do you agree? And if you agree, and why? If you agree, I'd like to know why.
So, Nick, what happened to starting with a softball question?
Just get right into it.
I said a compelling question, not necessarily a softball.
You throw the brother right into the deep end. Push me right into the deep end. So okay. As a business leader that's been focusing on diversity, equity, inclusion for the past 2 decades, I can tell you that it feels like Bill Murray in Back to the Future, where it's like, wow, you know, is this 2020 or is it 2000? But on the other hand, it is new. And your question is, why is it new? It's new for several reasons. Number one, it feels new to me because what's fueling the movement now, and it is a movement, not a moment. What's fueling the movement now is, I think, years of pent-up frustration. I believe that particularly Blacks have been talking to Blacks, whites have been talking to whites. But that brings me to the second. We now, what feels like to me, for the first time, truly have whites talking to Blacks, Blacks talking to whites. People who have not been talking to each other are now talking to each other in a candid, courageous way to say, aren't we better than this? And what can we do together to actually make things better so that we're not dealing with the same things, you know, a decade from now. That doesn't mean we're going to be perfect and we're going to fix everything. But you also say why it's new. I did an interview, I did 2 international interviews. One with the Economist magazine, a journalist from the Economist, and another one from the BBC. And they were reporting to me of what's happening in Europe. I have clients with global businesses, and they're talking about how that they're getting just as much feedback and questions from their employees in places like England and Scotland and Wales and India. So it's global. It's global. So again, what's new? What feels new is the jet fuel, and I have to use that because I'm an Air Force guy. What feels new is that this movement is being fueled by a lot of pent-up frustration. People are finally talking, and people are listening with a heart and empathy, trying to figure out how they can be great allies, and it's global. And I think that people want to do something that's actually going to make a difference and is sustainable, so that a decade from now, we're in a better place than we are today.
That's Shelton, we have a group of executives gathered today in our networks who clearly must embrace what you just said, which is there's a movement behind this and an opportunity that maybe is much, although this is uncomfortable, we all agree, right? It can be uncomfortable, but we have a level of comfort that we can have and should be having dialogue and should be turning that dialogue into action. I read a New York Times article just a few weeks ago that asked a question that I'd like to pose to you and to Robyn. Is speaking on social issues now part of the job as a C-suite leader? And is that different as well in 2020 versus in years past?
Yeah. Robyn, I'll let you take first crack.
Absolutely. I mean, I think in the current cultural climate, everything that's happened as a result of COVID, sort of the intersection of those two pivotal moments in our history. Nobody's going to forget, this year of 2020. And I do think that. I think it's changing what's needed to be a C-suite leader. I think, Shelton, to your point about empathy, that's a critical competency that's necessary here. I think C-suite leaders need to be listening and learning and being aware of what's going on, perhaps much more than they ever were, really being in touch with what's going on, with their employees, not just sitting up here, but really understanding, where people are coming from, what the sentiment is, and why they're feeling the way they are. So yeah, I do. I absolutely think it's changed what is needed, to be an effective leader.
Yeah, I changed. I think what we're seeing, what it feels like to me is I'm not even sure if this is accurate, but a shifting of priorities. Let me use a real world example. So one of the spaces that Icarus Consulting is known for is the utility industry. We have 4 former utility execs on my team. So we know the utility space. We know that language. We know what it's like. And I will tell you that in the utility space, one of the prime directives is safety. And there's not a CEO in the utility energy space that's not comfortable, confident, and competent talking about safety as any other topic in the business, financials or anything else. What I'm trying to do is get them to be a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more confident, and a little bit more competent talking about these things. And I will tell you, they're reaching out and they're saying, help me. Mm-hmm. And you say, well, what does that mean, Shelton? They don't want to say the wrong thing. They're afraid of trip. I just say, you've got to get comfortable with being vulnerable. You're not going to get this all right. You may trip up, you may make a mistake, but that's what people want. People don't want perfect leaders. They want vulnerable. They want you. They want to know that some of the things that's keeping them awake at night, that you know about it. The conversations I'm having with my C-suite leaders are, your employees want right from you right now something more than anything else. That is a safe space and a safe place to tell you what they're thinking and how they're feeling. And God, by the way, folks, your C-suite leaders out there that I'm talking to now, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Gone are the days you can't talk about politics. You can't talk about race. You can't talk about religion. You can't talk about immigration. Employees were always talking about these things. So wouldn't it be better to bring them into a safe place where you can have constructive and productive dialogue? And then you can figure out if there's 1 or 2 things that your company needs to act on. That's what's going to be different. I don't think you asked the question, it's going to be different being a C-suite leader. C-suite leaders are going to have to set the tone, and it needs to cascade down all the way to the front lines, that we are a safe, healthy, respectful place for people to come talk to us. Don't go talk to Glassdoor. Don't go talk to your neighbor. Come talk to, let me. So I'm getting, and I'm sure you are, Robyn, requests like crazy to do listening tours, where they just want someone like you and me to facilitate the conversation. And I find myself saying, normally I may shield you from a tough question, but I think you need to take this, because yes, it's going to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. I facilitated one recently, Black CEO, and and we were holding the listening session on Friday, Juneteenth. When we were using an app and it would bubble up the question that got the most likes and stuff, people are like, why are we having this discussion? Why are we having this town hall today on Juneteenth? Why isn't this a paid holiday off? And oh, by the way, is next Juneteenth going to be a paid holiday off? So that's what's new. That's what they got to get used to. Is taking real questions like that and then saying, oh, yeah, well, I guess I better go back to talk to my HR person. Juneteenth next year is going to be on a Saturday. There are going to be people that's going to want Friday off.
Right.
You better start thinking about it right now. That's what's
Well, you hit the nail on the head, Shelton, and Ned. I think the word of advice right now for everybody gathered and watching this is take a deep breath and let it out.
yes,
It's okay that this feels heavy. It's
yes,
okay that this is uncomfortable. It's
yes,
okay that you may not have all the answers, but
yes,
what you can't do is not have the dialogue.
yes,
And then let the dialogue lend itself to priority and decision. But I
yes,
have a question I want to pose that came from one of our board members. Not all leaders and employees may be ready or willing to talk in the workplace about how they're feeling. They're talking, but they may not be talking and ready to talk about it in the workplace. What steps can enterprise leaders take to engage those who are ready and those who are not ready but need to be?
yeah.
I'll jump into this, Shelton, and then I'll let you,
Yeah.
go, just because I wanted to comment on your last comment, and this is a perfect segue to that. I think that just as enterprises are at different places along the continuum in this journey, people are in different places,
Yes.
along this journey. And, both professionally and personally, people
Yes.
are sort of struggling with this. And
Yes.
to your earlier point about, leaders, one of the things I think that's really important is that we don't have all the answers. None of us have all the answers. Even you and I in this space, leading here, we don't have all the answers, and certainly our C-suite leaders don't. But I think, authenticity is really, really important, and owning that you don't have the answers, owning that you don't know everything, I think is critical to building trust at this. This is a critical point, for people and for enterprises. And I think, owning that, look, I say it, I am a white woman. I have no idea what it's like to be a Black man, or a Black woman in America. I can't even profess to have that knowledge, but that's okay. I learn, I listen, I educate myself. And that's what, C-suite leaders, everybody that's out there needs to think about, and being, authentic. The second point, and I think this answers your question, Nick, is about, why this is different, or what people can do. So I was talking to a colleague, I guess a couple of weeks ago, and we were saying, action, action. This is what we've been saying for decades. This is what we've been saying as DEI leaders. Now maybe ears are open. And I think it's critical that people are actually, walking the walk and not just talking the talk, because it's no longer, nobody's going to get a pass on this anymore. Employees are saying, okay, you put out this statement, we had a town hall, that's great. We have a DE&I statement on our website, but I don't see any, Black leaders in the C-suite. I don't see any diversity in the levels down. Who are we attracting? What are we doing to retain those people? And that's where the opportunities are. That's where the opportunities are, to really show your commitment, as an enterprise leader, and put some true action in place that's going to create measurable impact and change over time.
Yeah, measurable and sustainable, right?
Right.
The only thing I want to add is I want to double down on my previous statement about creating a place for dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And Nick, you talk about the people who are able and willing. So I like to use the words, they're comfortable, confident, and competent, but they just don't know if I can be authentic and vulnerable without it coming back to haunt me. You've got that group. But guys, we're not talking about the folks that are either unable or unwilling. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to say it. And oh, by the way, I'm afraid that if I say the wrong thing, I'm going to be labeled.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that group, and let's talk about the group that says, I'm not feeling all of this stuff.
Right.
You know what? I'm not feeling it. There are people right now, Black, white, and otherwise, that are confusing this movement, which is a Black Lives Matter movement, from the Black Lives Matter organization.
Yeah.
And people say you can't separate the two. Yes, you can.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can. Anybody that looked at the killing of Mr. Floyd, if you're a human being, you would say that's not right. And we're focusing on Black lives because we've been saying this for forever. And certainly now a lot of people would say, well, don't all lives matter, and don't gay lives matter, and don't whatever. So you have to create a space for those people that say, Nick, I'm not feeling this. I disagree, or I see it another way, or I don't understand, or I can't get on board, or I can't be supported. You have to create a safe space for them to tell you how they feel as well, because that's an education and learning opportunity. Or as a couple CEOs says, listen, I have the listening tour. I explain how this lines up with the values of the company. And then after we hear and we talk, maybe you need to do a period of self-reflection. If this is not a place that your values and our values don't align, then let us help you find a better place for you. And I know that may sound harsh, but you don't want to run them away by intimidating them and saying that their voice can't be heard. Let it be heard and let it be a learning point. That's what I'm trying to encourage my clients to do. Let it be a learning point for everybody.
Right, so don't squash the voice that you don't want to hear. Enable those voices individually, collectively to be heard, because that will create the great discussion, debate, and then.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. And I believe now more than ever, we can create spaces for people to have healthy, productive, and respectful conversations across generations, races, ethnicities, genders, whatever the difference is, I'm male, I'm Black, I'm physically abled, I'm 6'2", I'm Christian. I have all those privileges, but at the same time, I'm Black in an environment where it's not always healthy to be Black. So everybody's going to say, "What about me?" You got to create a space for everybody.
Yeah,
I don't want us to forget that.
I think that's lost, Shelton, a lot of times, what you just said, and I appreciate you raising it, that there's the inclusive piece, and inclusive means bringing voices in that cover the full spectrum of opinion, attitude, and potentially bias that can be overcome with education and action and maybe experience as well, potentially.
Yeah.
So Shelton and Robyn, you both have been at the forefront of diversity, equity, inclusion. Shelton, you've been the Chief Diversity Officer. I saw an article Tuesday in the Wall Street Journal about the evolution of that role. I see on LinkedIn postings from companies far and wide adding to this space, but if you're an HR leader, a finance leader, a CEO, or in some role responsibility that can have an impact, you're thinking, okay, we may not have a Chief Diversity Officer, so collectively, we need to play that role. What does that entail in 2020 as we move through COVID and through what we've been experiencing over the last 6 to 8 weeks that have given us this opportunity and given many the opportunity to be brought in? I will tell you the undertone to that article was about short tenure of the role,
yes,
about opportunities lost, and the lack of commitment to impact and financially measurable results.
Yes. So, Robyn, let me take this one first. Been there, done that. Where you have diversity leaders that's been saying some of the things that we've been saying, we've been experiencing for weeks, trying to lay out the business case, trying to fight for resources, trying to compete with various internal competitive, there's only so many resources internally. So trying to do that. And then getting frustrated, maybe leaving. So I already know what's happening there. But I think, you started off saying, what's different? Something feels different now. And this is what I'm hearing from my in-house Chief Diversity Officers who I'm working with my clients, that things are different now. And here's what's different. And I know you want to talk about the people that don't have one, but so this goes for everybody.
Yeah.
Nick, you know this, Robyn, you know this. What is it that you're trying to do? Right now, today is July the 16th. If you're listening to this now and you're saying, man, we haven't done anything, we don't know what to do, start with asking yourself some questions. Don't call me right away and then pay my daily rate to facilitate a conversation. Well, if you want to do that, that's fine. Wait, what am I talking about? My wife likes shoes. If you want to call me, I can help you. But take this as free advice. Have a business meeting around, okay, what is it that we need to do that we haven't been doing? I know it's important to know why we haven't done it, but why do we want to do it now? And then how are we going to get it done? Are we prepared to do and invest in this effort, just like we would anything else, to achieve what we know needs to be done? And by the way, can we do it now? Number one, isn't it going to appear reactive? Number two, didn't we just have a big layoff? Didn't we just have some furloughs? Optically, how am I going to explain this to my top-notch salesperson who I had to let go, that now I'm going to bring in Dr. Goode and his team and pay them their rate to do all of this stuff? So do you do it now? It may not even make sense from a business standpoint to do it in this current environment. So I would say, have a business meeting. Then when you've gotten to that point where it's like, you know what? We know what we need to do. We know why we want to do it. We're going to reposition some budget dollars to get it done. Now we just want somebody to come in and help us figure out what the plan is, and then what are the 2 or 3 things we need to start doing. Because there are some things you could be doing right now that are so budget friendly, if not budget neutral, that you could be sending a signal to your employees that, you know what, something's different. Something, you know, they're saying they want to have town halls, they want to have listening sessions, they're having panel discussions. You know, they're talking about doing some things that they would notice that are different. Wouldn't you agree, Robyn?
I would. I mean, it's interesting when you say, you know, ask yourselves the questions, because those questions are often the questions I ask when a client, potential client reaches out to me and says, hey, you know, we want a training session. And I say, well, you know, first of all, you know, what was the catalyst for this? Besides, you know, obviously the current climate, and George, you know, what's really driving this? And have you thought about how this ties to your, you know, business imperatives? How is this going to help align your employee experience, your customer experience? Obviously, starting internally, you got to get your own house in order before you're going out and presenting yourself as something different than what you might look like. But I'm always asking, you know, what's the catalyst? What's going on from a business perspective that's driving you, you know, reaching out to me? But you've got to be able to answer those questions, and you've got to be able to say, okay, this is point A, and what is point A? Where are we? What do people want? What are people looking for? How are we, you know, assessing really where our workforce is and what they want? And then how do we get to point B? And that's, you know, all of the work that you and I do, Sheldon, is doing that, getting from point A, you know, to point B. It's interesting, you know, I, you know, come from the legal world, and, you know, chief diversity officers started popping up in big law firms, you know, and then of course in the corporate world. And, you know, you want to make sure that those roles are meaningful, and that it's not another, you know, like your role, you know, that you held all of those years was meaningful, that you were actually effectuating change, that it's not a figurehead, that it's not a check the box mechanism for optics. You know, I think that optics is really important. To your point about, you know, we have a couple of clients that we started talking to about DEI work before COVID hit. And then COVID hit and sort of everything froze, and they've come back and they said, okay, now, you know, we're moving forward. And when we talk about messaging and going out to the workforce about what's going on, I remind them to say, hey, this was going on before. We were going to do this. COVID was an interrupter for a period of time, but this is not in reaction to your point. So I think the way it's positioned to the workforce, and the way it's shown to be real action that's being taken. And I think, to your point, there are things that can be done, like the things you're describing. And then I think the next step is really looking at, employee life cycle processes, and
Yeah.
where is bias interrupting people's progression and
Yeah.
trajectory all the
Right.
way, talent acquisition, development, leadership,
Right.
and succession planning.
Right.
Those take a little bit more time, a little
Right.
bit more intention, perhaps a little bit more, strategy, definitely,
Right.
and budget. But
Right.
that's where real change starts to happen, when you're really digging down and you're examining your people, your process, your performance, looking at policies and the way you've always done things, and starting to reimagine, what that looks like going forward, and tying
Yeah.
that to business performance.
So let me say this real quick, Nick. For those C-suite leaders, and especially CEOs who just put out a statement, and now it's like, okay, what's next? And you say, well, I can't get to this big stuff, right now. That's fine. Put together, Nick, you mind if I give them some free advice? I mean, they may not call us, Robyn, so I'm going to have to buy my wife's her eye on a pair of black pumps with some red bottoms.
I know those.
I'm going to have to write a personal check because
Right.
I'm going to give away some free advice.
They're expensive.
I'm going to give away some free advice to you C-suite leaders that are listening. Use your own internal data. Before you go out, if you just put out a statement, before you, in between putting out that statement and writing a $50,000 check to somebody, which I would advise you not to do, you start looking in-house. Robyn talked about all of those, there's data right in your own house. Got employee engagement data, probably, where employees are telling you and have been telling you where there's some opportunities. Maybe you don't dress all of them, but you take the top 2 or 3, put together a cross-functional team, let them go off and work on it, let them communicate back to employees what's going on. And then if you say, well, that's too soft, well, then fine, look at the hard data. Look at your own promotion rates. Look at your own applicant pools. Look at who's being interviewed out of those applicant pools, who's being hired. What does your succession look like? Here's one for you. If you have a number of hourly employees, particularly if you have a number of hourly employees that are subject to disciplinary action for everything from inappropriate behavior or promptness, look to see if there is disproportionate number of people that look a certain way or whatever that's being disciplined. And if that's not good enough, look at who's getting the exceed rating expectations. Is that skewed? If that's not enough, if you say that's still too soft, then look at your 401k data. If you've got a number of people that's not participating, even though you've got a good, healthy match, and then you look at out of that group that's not participating, you find that 50% or more is one particular group, whether they be hourly employees, new employees, or people of color. What are you doing about that? Those are things that you can address that costs zero. And like I said, if you want to help me buy my wife some black pumps and red bottoms, www.icarusconsult.net, whatever call AchieveNext. I'm sure we can help them figure it out, couldn't we, Robyn?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I have a question for you related to that. So one of our members brought up Nike as an example, a brand that is very much an insider brand among Black consumers. At the same time, their CEO, John Donahoe, recently said that the whites make up less than half, 43% of its total US workforce, 77% of its high-ranking vice presidents company-wide are white. Those are the 2019 numbers. He also said that just under 10% of their vice presidents are Black, but that is still nearly a 2% improvement from the previous year, 2% improvement. But he said, quote, that progress isn't enough. Most important priority is to get our house in order. And he stopped there and said, we're going to get our house in order. And then the next thing he's going to report is based on the numbers. And the thought was move the needle forward in some way, shape, or form that demonstrates commitment to this for systemic change. Along those lines, as CEO, I look around my C-suite today and say, do I have the right people around me to do this? And we're one of those enterprises that isn't in a position to bring in. I have Robyn as our ad hoc chief diversity officer, right? I'm blessed to have her here. But for those C-suite leaders who say, okay, if I don't have the ability today, or I don't feel it's the right time today, to your point, Shelton, looking reactive, to bring that person in, what are 3 hard skills, technical skills or experiences, and 3 soft skills I should be looking for as a C-suite leader in me or on a member of my team or us collectively to demonstrate to play that role effectively to move whatever it is we decide to do forward? What do you think?
So I'll take 3. I'll let Robyn take 3. First, a disclaimer.
Okay.
I have the privilege of knowing 80% of the Fortune 150 CDOs.
Okay.
One of those is Tamika Curry-Smith, who's the Chief Diversity Officer at Nike. She's a personal friend that I've known for years. And I'm going to say this, under her leadership, Nike will begin to turn that large ship around. They will, no doubt, as will Zaninga Shaw at Starbucks and Allison Green at Lincoln Financial. I can go on and on and on. These guys have not had the tailwinds that they needed to be able to push that big enterprise along. Now they've got them. So I'm looking for good things. 3 things that you need: soft skills. I'm gonna take the soft ones. I'll let Robyn take the hard ones.
I like that.
Oh, no.
Put the lawyer on the spot. I
You're
like
the lawyer. You're the lawyer. You know, you're the lawyer. Authenticity, authentic. What does that look like? I don't know all the answers. You know what? I'm gonna put some smart people around me, and we're gonna figure this out. Authenticity. Number 2, vulnerability. I don't know what I don't know. I've been, if I'm a white male exec, that's 51. I've been a white male exec for 51 years. There's things, I've got privileges I can't begin to count. There's just things I don't know, but I need you to help me. Now, I'm not gonna wear you out by having you give me the history of the United States of America from Jamestown to 2020, but from time to time, I need you to coach me. And then number 3, I need you to, I'm gonna roll my sleeves up. I need everybody to get in the boat and man an oar. And no more of this elitism. You know, we're the C-suite and y'all figure that, no. If you're making an acquisition, making a merger, going into a new market, everybody, you would be, I want you to apply the same skills, damn it, that you would any other business opportunity. That's what this is. This is a crisis that you should be leveraging as a business opportunity. Those that come out of this getting it are going to be at a competitive advantage when the economy opens back up. Trust me. And so I told you over to your friendly neighborhood attorney.
You know, I would add empathy too to your soft skills. So what we'll have 4 on the soft skills side. You know, on the hard skills, I think it's measurement. I think it's metrics. I think it's KPIs. I think it's looking at, again, that very financial focus and tying that to your business initiatives. I've always said that, you know, DE&I needs to be treated like a business imperative. It's just like any other business imperative, and that it needs strategy behind it. It's not, you know, let's just throw it up and see where it lands. You know, any other strategic business initiative that an enterprise is rolling out, you know, you're rolling out a new technology, you're rolling out a new marketing strategy, a new product, whatever it is, always has that, you know, that due diligence and that strategy behind it, and those KPIs and the financial focus and the metrics and the measurable goals and objectives. To me, those are the hard skills that need to go behind these initiatives to be treated, just as you said, like any other business imperative, because it does create competitive advantage. It does create sustainability. It does create overall enterprise success and performance from a business standpoint. We always talk, you know, again, that EX-CX alignment. I mean, that is the key to enterprise performance, aligning that employee experience with that customer experience. And if you don't have that employee experience, and you're not a leader that is growing that and focusing on that, you're lost on the business side. And to me, those are the hard skills that leaders need to be looking at. What's the business impact? What are those KPIs? What are the metrics? Are we hitting them? If we're not, why aren't we? And that goes to looking at demographic data. It goes to looking at all of those processes we've been talking about. And not just, we've talked a lot about this with succession planning. We can't wave a magic wand and turn the C-suite from, middle-aged white men to completely diverse. But what can you do to look back all the way through to starting at your talent acquisition? Where are you getting people? What is that experience of that candidate coming in all the way through? That takes time. I always say you can't turn the Titanic around, right? You can't just shoot, but
that Titanic sunk, so let's skip
well,
that.
I get it, but you can't turn on a dime. And so you've got to have that strategic plan, those short-term goals and those long-term goals to actually, see that change over time.
So you added one to mine. I'm gonna add one to yours.
Okay.
So the fourth one, accountability.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Hey, you want to get things done, just
100%.
like anything else, you hold people accountable. Now, and I ain't just talking about the soft A. I'm holding you accountable. I tell you what, 50% of your bonus this year is going to be tied to doing A.
Agreed.
To not doing A, achieving A. I want a result. I don't want action. Right. I want a result. You say, well, you can't turn the C-suite, from middle-aged white men to anything else overnight. But what I can tell you, what I can hold you accountable for is the next opening.
Yep.
So now I'm the C-suite talking to my directs. The next CFO, the next opening you have on your team at the VP level and above, I'm not going to tell you you have to go out and hire anybody. But I am going to tell you, since you're going to give that posting, that search to somebody, we're not giving it to such and such. We're going to give it to a Black search firm. Let's give it to Carrington and Carrington out of New York. Let them bring the best talent. And then I bet you that in that pool, there's going to be women and it's going to be people of color.
Yep.
X search company was saying, we can't find anybody. No, you can't find anybody.
Right.
So if I'm a C-suite person, accountability, I'm not going to tell you, we're going to do the Rooney Rule. What I am going to tell you is, we're going to spend money anyway. Why don't we spend that money with a Black search firm that's the best in the country and watch them come back with talent that's able and capable and willing to come to our company. So don't people tell me, well, we can't do this. Yes, you can. All you do is say, I'm gonna put 50% of your variable pay or your long-term incentives at risk if you don't do it. Watch it get done.
Right, and you can even build into performance management that accountability about what you're doing all the way through. And you've got the C-suite, you've got underneath that, but what is that? What are managers, frontline managers that are on, in real time with employees? What are they doing around supporting, DE&I work, and how is that part of the metric of their performance management when you're evaluating them? Yep. That is a component to it. It doesn't just sit outside; it becomes part of your review.
Yep.
Another accountability. No, that big A is important.
Yep.
So another question that was posed to me was, let's assume we have taken that time to meet as a team. We've created the right environment for a diversity of opinion and where each of us are in that sense of evolution around this, an ability to embrace and say, we should take action. Let's assume we've done that. Let's assume we've got all of those hard and soft skills represented in the group that can make the change. One of our CEOs brought to light the fact that we're living in a world where information, good, bad, authenticated, or otherwise, flows at us nonstop. 24/7, 365. Noise. It is a very noisy world we live in. And you delineated it too, Shelton, the difference between the Black Lives Matter movement and the Black Lives Matter organization, where there have been talks about, anti-Semitism and other pieces where you just find that I heard this, I see this, I interpret this. How does a C-suite leader attempt to address the fact that that information is flowing at employees and customers and you at all times, and it does impact how we react to and respond to the message being conveyed by the people that I work for and with.
That's a tough one. Shelton, you want to take that? I'm thinking here. I need a minute to process that. There was a lot in that.
Uh-oh.
Oh, did we lose Shelton?
Oh, now he's back. There he's back.
I'm back. Yeah.
All right. I don't even know if you heard my question.
You've got a lot
I
of
did.
messaging going on and information. How do we handle that, you know,
Yeah,
as a
I mean,
C-suite
that's
leader?
the
I need to
reality.
think
Yeah.
about that for a
We don't
second.
have the water cooler, Shelton, but we've got the virtual water cooler, right? And we've got message delivered, message received, message interpreted internally and externally, and that creates tension.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the question was, what is the CEO to do?
Yeah.
I'm glad you're stumped too.
Yeah, well, of course, this, you know, we're talking about the speed, the messiness, all of that. I don't know if I have the perfect answer. I can only tell you some of the things that people are trying to do. That's all I can. And that is to, number one, be absolutely clear about your message. Number two, you have to get your message out to all of the audiences using all of the channels. Shareholders, stakeholders, community, customers, suppliers. I should have started with employees. I'm sorry. Should have started with employees.
Shelton freeze.
Yeah, Shelton.
Communicate. And then you have to communicate and meet people where they are. And I think the question I'm getting a lot from clients and non-clients alike is, again, I'm so afraid of saying the wrong thing. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to, you know, do I say LGBTQ? Do I do, you know, what, everything. So it's like, hey, listen, again, focus on trying to just be more comfortable in having a conversation. Try to be a little bit more confident. Increase your competency by listening more, and then master the art of asking questions. And what's wrong with asking employees, how are you? What's going on? And I know some companies are already doing this. We're doing it during COVID, sending out surveys or whatever, having, you know, just keeping me informed. I know, what's happening with the company. I'm being kept up to date. Quick pulse surveys. You can do the same thing around these issues. What's happening with you? How you feeling? What's the thing that you want to, share or talk about? What would you like to hear more about? What would you like to hear less about? And I think employees, again, would appreciate it. If you're already doing it, keep doing it. If you're not doing it, think about starting it. Because communication. Robyn, what you think?
I would say to your question, Nick, consistency is important. I think, there's a lot of messaging going out every day, right? We get a lot of information quickly. There's a lot of polarization going on in the messaging that we hear from the external world. And I think it gives employees a sense of safety and trust when the message coming out internally is, we've taken a position and we're going to be consistent. I think that, I think people are afraid to, quote unquote, say the wrong thing or have that discomfort. And I think that if you do say the wrong thing, it's okay. It's okay, but you need to own it. As particularly, as a white person in the business world, the worst thing that you can do is be defensive, and talk and not be listening to the person you're interacting with. So I think that that's, and I think that's true for C-suite leaders. It's okay if you make a mistake, if you're learning from it and you're not defending what you said. You're listening to the person who's sort of, for lack of a better word, not calling you out, but explaining, how what you said or did impacted them. Certainly not the intent, right? We talk about impact and intent when we're talking about bias, but own it and say, you know what, I didn't intend that, but I want to hear what you have to say. I want to listen to what you're saying so that I can be better equipped next time when this situation occurs. So I think that's a way to
Yeah.
deal with that discomfort,
So
not be defensive. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sheldon, your directive that I didn't know you were going to say that your directive about, yes, the employee, but let's include supplier, customer, shareholder, board, industry potentially, market potentially, and consistently engaged reminds me, and I want to validate it with the following. In 2010, I had the opportunity to interview the CEO of Chicago-based W.W. Grainger, big, large wholesale distributor, and he talked about one of the critical factors behind them outperforming their competitors during that very difficult time. There's a correlation to the financial time and crisis we're operating in right now, right? Think about that 08, 09 time period. Different triggers, but that's that last time period where of great financial challenge. And there was Grainger outperforming. When I asked him, why are you outperforming? He said, all of those relationships, employee, shareholder, customer, supplier, competitor, we treat it as a we equation consistently. Same side of the table, physically and otherwise. And some were surprised by that and probably taken aback and may have made them uncomfortable. But he drew the correlation that he thought that it was a critical factor in action behind it. The same may hold true today. Those enterprises that say, this is an equation that's not just about my employee base. It starts there inside our house, but involves these others, and we have to overtly engage and involve and have that dialogue as a part of it. Number one, it may actually make it more comfortable to make that the masses behind it, but also maybe the impact can be greater felt. Yep. Top line, bottom line, and shareholder value driven.
Yep. It's the whole ecosystem. So, people say, well, I talked to several of my clients and I said, you're going to put out this statement and I know that you think you're talking to employees or customers, but some of your suppliers, or not some of your suppliers, but people who have been trying to do business with you, small suppliers, minority, disadvantaged, women-owned, disability, veterans, you go to your website, you see nothing that says, hey, interested in doing business with us? We hold monthly forums to educate you about, once you become a new vendor, how do you actually get business with us? Or here are the things, here are the products, the services we consume as a commodity and are actively looking at turning over contracts. Sometimes it's the person that supplies the toilet tissue for your bathroom. You've known that person, you keep doing it, you got a good price. It's like, when's the last time you just went and checked? There may be another person out there that can offer you a 2-cent per roll discount. And it happens to be a minority, woman-owned, veteran-owned, disability-owned firm. The economic inclusion. Don't you at least, even if you can't get with that from economic inclusion, if I can save you 2 cents a roll, is that worth it over the course of, I don't know, the next millennium? These are sorts of things we want people to do. Yeah. And again, don't look for these knee-jerk, reactive, optical things because of the heat of the moment. Yeah. Take a step back and say, okay, we haven't done anything, or maybe we haven't done our best game, but let's think about what that should look like. And then we can't do everything overnight, especially now. So where do we start? Where do we start? Let's have that conversation. Not where, maybe not ready to talk about where we want to end up in 5 years, but you don't want to be where you are now. So let's start. Let's take that first step.
Yeah, this is
Yeah, I
your,
mean, I think,
go ahead,
you know,
Robyn.
I think in the past, you know, I think, you know, you've got all of these constituencies that have always been part of the equation. They haven't been necessarily working together, which is maybe, you know, where we're going now, where we need to go, which is part of the movement of this groundswell of what's going on right now. But, you know, certainly in the past years, you know, clients and customers have been trying to drive, you know, their service providers, you know, the people they work with. Certainly, you know, in the professional services industry where I used to live, you know, that client was always the driver to turn, you know, the knob and move that needle for that service provider to actually do something. And so maybe now that is something that's different, that other, you know, the other side of the equation is now driving too. And maybe all of these constituencies come together to elevate all of us, you know, as a society here, as a culture across the country, to actually move towards, you know, where we should have been, you know, so many years ago. It's crazy that we're still having these conversations, but of course it's so ingrained, you know, in our history. You know, the reasons why we are where we are is a whole other conversation that we certainly don't have time for. But you know, it's time to you know, change that dialogue and really move forward.
So as we hit the top of the hour, you know, I first off, I think the two of you demonstrated authenticity, vulnerability, a we, not me in this, accountability and empathy, right? I also think I want to thank you for giving even me as a CEO a moment to say, take a deep breath and say, whoa, it's not about just taking action for the sake of action or responding for the sake of response, okay? It's okay to take a moment and say, where are we? What is point A? And and maybe we define a series of point B's and C's, and then we just need to commit to taking action and communicating clearly and with consistency, with authenticity of both substance and form. So I am a very kind of people, this COVID world is tough for me, Shelton, because I'm a people person. I'm a hugger, I'm a high fiver, let's get in the room, and this is as close as we can get right now. I need it. So my form needs to be a face-to-face, right? Others may say, look, I'm gonna take the time. I worked for a CEO who was an amazing orator who could pen a 5-page long letter that I couldn't put down. But that was his form of communicating. Own your form. Make sure you get it out there and make sure that message, though, goes to a broader base, to the base of people you really need to be meeting. Those employees and everybody else that drives that responsibility you have as a C-suite leader, as an enterprise, including the communities you're a part of. Did I hit the nail on the head with that?
I think you did. I think you did.
Yep.
Words of advice, where do we go from here? Shelton, how can people get a hold of you again? And what do you get a sense you're going to be focused on, you and your colleagues at Icarus, for the next 60 to 90 days as we make our way into business reentry period, a series of waves driven by COVID-19?
Yeah, I think right now my team is spread and doing a number of things. Myself, I'm having conversations like this with boards and CEOs. And I'm calling them focused dialogues.
Okay.
You know, let's take an hour to have a conversation just like this. And so imagine one of the people on the screen right now, instead of outsiders, it's just us. And we're going deeper to talk about, you know, what makes sense. I can't underline that word enough. What makes sense for us? Let's not just do what X did or Y did because it appears. What makes sense for us? And what's our cadence? What's our pace? As far as contact for me, best way is the website, www.icarusconsult.net. Or if you can't remember that, you can find me on LinkedIn and we can go from there.
Awesome. Robyn, I thank you for helping bring this dialogue to light. Shelton, on behalf of AchieveNext and our networks and those gathered today, thank you. This is a catalyst for us to stay and get connected to you. And we will be making sure we send an email follow-up that will have a link to this recording, contact information for Shelton and Robyn. Maybe I'll reference a few of the articles that we brought to light so you can take a read through those. And then I know Robyn's going to be working with Shelton and others in a series of follow-ons to talk about talent acquisition engagement and development of your workforce, leadership and succession planning going forward, and how to take that step that, as Shelton put it, is right for you. At the top of the hour, thank you, Shelton and Robyn. Thank you, colleagues and friends. I wish you the best. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay connected as we make our way through a challenging road ahead, but one we can get through stronger together. Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.